Section 2, Models and Tools for Democratic Participation. Please again look at the contents and familiarise yourself with them. Let's begin by focusing on the practitioner roles in understanding the past to create the future. It is important to support the developments of students' self-awareness through the use of professional reflective practice. The recording of student biographical events and their narratives for individual and interpersonal reflection is an effective way of beginning the awareness process. Themes can be identified, and their interaction can then be reflected on. There are different stages in this process: recalling the memories, acknowledging them, identifying them and interpreting them, putting them into some sort of chronology. How do they interact? What patterns do they suggest? What understanding can be developed? And how can you then apply this understanding? The life spiral exercise is designed to develop the self-awareness process. Do this exercise yourself and with a trusted colleague before you use it with a student. It can be used to generate areas or themes of interest from one's life, or to focus on specific ones, such as identity, education, family, prejudice, etc. Draw a diagram or find a diagram of spiral or helix, and then mark 5 random events from your life onto that spiral or helix. If you are not working with your events from your life, what you could do is mark 5 events from your life that are connected with a chosen theme onto the spiral. For example, if looking at the education theme, the 5 events could be preschool, family support, primary school, hobbies, secondary school. Having written those 5 events, now focus on the stories that underlie those events. Write or make notes about these stories. What's your analysis of them and their relationship to each other? Spend a while thinking about this. When you finish that, share any insights you have made with a trusted other. And whilst you're doing that, notice whether the nature of the insights change from thinking on your own to discussing them with your colleague. Have you noticed any changes in the use of your language from that you used with yourself to that you used with your colleague? Another particularly useful way of using this exercise is to explore your own legacies around prejudice and discrimination. Plot 5 events that have contributed to your legacies, i.e. beliefs and behaviours, around prejudice and discrimination. Write the stories that underlie these events. What patterns or themes do you notice? And again, discuss these with a trusted colleague. Make a note of any realizations and reflect on how you intend to apply these to your professional behaviour. When a group of you and your colleagues have completed this exercise, analyse an incident in your institution that has prejudice/discrimination as a component. How has your developing awareness changed your perception of the incident and the desired response? The second tool is an emotional literacy scale put together by Claude Steiner. It goes from 0% awareness at the bottom to 100% awareness at the top. And probably neither of those are reachable in a sense. But how do you help as a young person to go from 0% awareness and work towards the 100%? Notice as you're looking at this that the verbal barrier is halfway up. The the scale. What do you then do before you reach language and the ability to use language? The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. A quote by Ludwig Wittgenstein. Awareness, intrapersonal and interpersonal, is not possible without language. It is the primary means that we use to explore and understand ourselves and each other. It is therefore vital that we and students cross the verbal barrier in order that we are able to reflect on and understand our own thoughts and behaviours. This will enable us to do the same for others, and so lay the foundation for the co-creation of all our futures, utilising democratic structures. How could you use this scale to chart the understanding of the data generated by the life spiral exercise? Reflect on this and perhaps also discuss it with some of your colleagues. Although the life spiral is essentially a coaching tool, when using it with marginalised young people, it must be used within the legal requirements of organisational, national and international regulations around safeguarding and child protection. When using this exercise with students, there may well be occasions when the student discloses information that requires the additional support of specialist staff. If there is anything that you feel unsure about, please discuss this with your supervisor. Another tool, reflexive practice. The educationist John Dewey, his definition of reflexive practice was, experience plus observation and reflection leads to knowledge. The reflective approach. This is a very traditional approach, but still a very useful one. Rolfe et al.'s method of reflexive practice is somewhat simpler, but equally useful. What? So what? Now what? This approach is useful because of the reminder that all reflection should lead to some sort of response or action. Donald Shum, reflection on action leads to reflection in action. So consistent reflection enhances our perception and, eventually, our decision making. How could you utilize these reflective practices in individual and group behaviors? Apart from our personal beliefs and morals, another significant influence on our perception and interpretation of events is the professional training that we have received. Whilst there's been a focus on joined-up thinking and multi-agency working in recent years, it still remains generally true that different educational professions operate separately from each other, with little understanding of each other's theories and practices. Although the term joined-up thinking has generally been applied to partnership collaborations between professionals and organisations, and between professionals and their clients, it could also be applied to the reflective habits of individual practitioners. There are many different available theories that may be of use to us in interpreting the data collected by the methods referred to above. These can be drawn from psychological, educational, social, economic, health, and political sectors. These various theories frame our perceptions and dictate how we interpret our experiences, and therefore, most importantly, our professional responses. The wider the spectrum of theories used, the more informed and joined up our thinking and decision-making becomes. It is important that joined-up thinking forms the foundation for joined-up action. A quick mention of the sociobiographical method. It's a set of theories that may help frame our responses, that focuses on the cultivation of adaptation skills for significant transition events and experiences. The theory advocates the view that biographical experiences occur within a social context, which will affect the interpretation and meaning of them. Biographical accounts are not just an indicator or illustration of social change, but also attitudes and values, generating new directions and behaviors. This quote from Michael Rustin and Prue Chamberlain is an important one and needs to be followed up. Human qualities. What human qualities are useful in our professional activity? What are the desired human qualities to underpin our professional practice? Carl Jung suggested the 4 H's: honesty, humour, humanity, humility. What's our experience of these? What others would you choose? How do we cultivate them and demonstrate them, personally and professionally? How do we apply them and use them in our professional work? How important is the environment in the cultivation and application of these? Are human qualities culturally transferable? Are the same qualities important in different cultures or environments? If you think yes, explain why, and if no, do the same. And if you're in between and it depends, also note the reasons why. Watch this short video on human qualities. Another theory worth mentioning is attachment theory by John Bowlby. Attachment is a long-lasting psychological connection with a meaningful person that causes pleasure while interacting and soothes in times of stress. The quality of attachment has a critical effect on development and has been linked to various aspects of positive functioning, such as psychological well-being. It's impossible to give a complete rundown on attachment theory in this course, but again, we would urge you to follow this one up, because you then get to the question, how might you make use of this theory when responding to marginalized and vulnerable young people? Do you think your own attachment experiences affect your perception? Please complete the multiple choice questions for section 2 on the Moodle platform to check your understanding of this part. Reflection and discussion questions. Do you regard the theories that currently frame your perception and interventions right, or useful, or both? How could you broaden the range of theories and practices that inform your perceptions? How might you apply these practices to supporting your and your organization's development? Please think about these evaluation questions. Has this section supported you to identify life themes for further discussion with your young people? Facilitate the expression and understanding of these. Reflect on your perceptions and professional responses. Think in more diverse ways and make better decisions. To see the link between these models and practices and democratic participation. End of section 2.